Okay, so let's talk about Albert Einstein. We all know the name, right? But today we're going to peel back the layers of that iconic image and really get to know the complex, fascinating man behind the mind. I mean, you know the equation, you've seen the face a million times, and you definitely know the one word that always comes to mind when you hear his name: genius. But what if I told you the real story is way more interesting? It's a story of rebellion, of deep contradictions, and a journey onto the world stage he never really asked for. And, believe it or not, it doesn't start in some fancy university lab. Nope, it starts in a quiet, humble patent office. See, long before he was a household name, Einstein was a total nonconformist. He really struggled to fit into that super rigid academic world. He just felt like all that strict, by-the-book learning was totally crushing his creativity. And his path? It was anything but typical. Get this, he failed his university entrance exam. Then he gave up his German citizenship just to avoid the draft. And he had a really hard time finding a job until a friend's dad pulled some strings and got him a gig as a patent examiner. And it was right there, in that office, looking at other people's inventions all day, that he found the freedom, the mental space to basically rethink the entire universe. And this is where it gets just mind-blowing. In one single year, he drops 4 papers that change everything. He's like, hey, maybe light is made of little packets of energy, which, just kicks off quantum theory. Oh, and by the way, atoms, totally real. Then he goes and redefines space and time, and just for good measure, he gives us the most famous equation in history. All of this while working a full-time day job. It's incredible. Okay, so that was his miracle year. Now let's talk about his next great leap forward. This was a theory so big, so profound, it was going to turn him into the world's very first celebrity scientist. I mean, can you imagine seeing a headline like this? Revolution in science. After centuries, the ideas of Isaac Newton, the guy who basically wrote the rulebook for physics, had been overthrown. The question on everyone's mind was simple. How? How did he do it? Okay, so here's the key. He totally reimagined what gravity even is. You see, Newton thought of it as this invisible force, right? Like a rope pulling things together. But Einstein? He had a completely different picture. He said, what if big things, like the sun, are actually warping the very fabric of space and time around them? It's like putting a bowling ball on a trampoline. The planets aren't being pulled, they're just rolling along the curves in that fabric. A total game changer. And the brilliant thing is, he came up with a way to prove it. He made a prediction you could actually test. He said, look, if I'm right and space-time is curved, then the sun's massive gravity should actually bend the light from a faraway star. So they waited. An eclipse in 1919 was the perfect opportunity to see if it was true. And when the observations, led by Sir Arthur Eddington, came in, they confirmed it. The starlight was bent, exactly as he predicted. Just like that, Einstein went from being a respected physicist to a global superstar, literally overnight. But all this newfound fame couldn't have come at a worse time. The world was sliding into absolute chaos, and it was about to force Einstein into a role he never, ever wanted. So, picture this. It's 1933, and Einstein is visiting the US when Hitler comes to power back in Germany. As probably the most famous Jewish intellectual on the planet, he immediately becomes a target. He knew he couldn't go back, so he renounced his German citizenship again, while the Nazis were literally burning his books in the streets and putting a bounty on his head. He was now a refugee, and he found a new home, a safe haven, at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton. And in America, he really started living this kind of dual life. On one hand, you have the scientist, who was actually becoming more and more isolated. He was chasing this unified field theory and famously arguing against the weirdness of quantum mechanics, a field he helped start. But on the other hand, you have the public figure, the activist, who used his immense fame as a platform to fight for civil rights and to passionately argue for world peace. He was incredibly outspoken about racism. I mean, think about it. He had just fled horrific persecution in Germany, so when he saw the segregation in America, he was just appalled. He called it the nation's worst disease. And he didn't just talk. He joined the NAACP and made it very clear he was not going to stay quiet about it. And all of this really brings us to the core of who he was, because Einstein was a man absolutely defined by deep, fascinating contradictions. Okay, so let's talk about one of the biggest paradoxes of his life. How does the world's most famous pacifist, a man who called war a disease,
get tangled up with the most destructive weapon ever created? Well, he was faced with an absolutely impossible choice. Fellow refugee scientists came to him, terrified, warning him that Nazi Germany could be on the verge of developing an atomic bomb. The fear that Hitler might get that power first was overwhelming. So he did it. He signed the letter to President Roosevelt that pushed the US to start its own nuclear research. And that letter, well, it directly led to the Manhattan Project. It was a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his days. He would later call it the one great mistake of his life. And the contradictions weren't just political, they were scientific too. In a strange twist, the great revolutionary became, well, a dissenter. Remember, he was the one who came up with the idea that light could act like a particle, a cornerstone of quantum theory. And yet, he could never bring himself to accept the bizarre probabilistic world that quantum mechanics revealed. His famous line was, "God does not play dice with the universe." What he meant was he just couldn't accept that at its core, reality was based on randomness and chance. He was convinced there had to be some deeper, more elegant set of rules hiding underneath it all. And that belief, that conviction, ended up isolating him from the mainstream of a field that he himself had helped create. So, what are we left with? It's a legacy that's so much more complex than just that caricature of wild-haired genius, right? Einstein's life shows us a brilliant, but also deeply flawed human being. He was a rebel, a refugee, a pacifist who helped create a terrifying weapon, and a revolutionary who couldn't quite accept his own revolution. His story really forces us to ask this huge question. What happens when a mind that can see the secrets of the universe is confronted with all the complexities of just being human?